Dana, before we begin, do you have any funny little anecdote that you have encountered in the last few weeks of quarantine? Done anything weird?
I mean, we've done anything weird. I mean, probably a lot of what I do might be considered weird to some, but I would say we've been doing like close to 100 person like dance Zoom parties, which I don't think is all of that unique, but
Wait, elaborate. How does that
work? My husband is, one of his hobbies is DJing. And so we have a huge group of friends all over the country, and we've been doing dance parties where everyone logs into a Zoom meeting. It's like 5 pages of Brady Bunch gallery screens, and we dance in our homes, and we have like costume themes, and it's just a really great way to get your body moving, and we're all big into music, so this is a way for us to still feel like we can get our fix of music and have a dance party.
I've always been a little bit self-conscious about my dancing, but this sounds like a perfect opportunity. Is there any way I could get invited to the next one?
Abso-freaking-lutely.
Hey Unlock listeners, this episode's brought to you by Point Central, the leader in business-grade smart property solutions designed for rental properties. Point Central's technology helps you increase property safety, reduce operational costs, and improve guest satisfaction. Head over to pointcentral.com/VRMB to learn more. And Rental Guardian. With over 1 million property owners, thousands of property managers, hundreds of software partners and counting, Rental Guardian is arguably the most complete and trusted travel and damage protection platform in the industry. You can learn more at rentalguardian.com. And Breezeway. Breezeway's operations platform makes it easy to ensure quality, safety, and cleanliness across your properties so you can deliver an amazing guest experience every time. Head over to breezeway.io to learn more.
What's up, LA?
Hey friends, how are you?
Can't complain.
Yeah, we're doing good.
Have you guys done anything interesting this weekend? What were you up to yesterday? I couldn't get a hold of you on your telephones. Makes me anxious.
We were doing some bird photography for the Audubon Society in conjunction with our neighbors that have a private wildlife reserve. However, very early on in the day, we lost a drone in a river that we had just seen caimans, which are kind of alligator, hop into. And we ended up to our waist in that river looking for the drone, which we did not find.
Are you serious?
Just a regular Saturday.
Wait, so who actually got in? It certainly couldn't have been Stuart.
Hey!
I was the one. First, I crawled onto a tree in the middle of the river to everyone's shock. But then I said, there's no way I'm getting in this river. So we called a couple guys and they brought kayaks. And we got on the kayaks and then they just got in the river. So then I felt bad and I got in the river with them. It turns out caimans are a non-aggressive form of alligator, if you're willing to believe that.
Yeah, I don't think I want to believe that.
And Tammy got right in there too.
All I have in my mind right now is Tammy the dog whisperer when we were in Rio de Janeiro. She was on top of that car and there was like 10 wild dogs barking from below. You remember that, Tammy?
I do remember. I don't do good like with noises, like all that barking and
that was one of the more surreal moments filming our show, was being in the middle of a Brazilian rainforest. And Tammy, you asked what?
If the dogs were in their own room, so they were just running free, wild. And they said, no, they're all in their own area, so no worry. And then I get there, and they all come after me.
Tammy, I have to apologize because I felt really bad. But what was I going to do? I couldn't do anything about it. And I just couldn't contain myself. It was so,
Thank you, man.
Funny.
Thanks for the emotional support.
Oh, that's what I'm here for.
Speaking of dogs,
Speaking of dogs, the podcast season is beginning. I think within like 1 minute of our first episode, we're talking dogs with Dana Lubner of Effortless Rentals in Denver, Colorado. Dana is pretty amazing, I gotta say, based on everything that I knew about her up until the interview, and I have a newfound appreciation for her after our interview. But she puts her dogs of The Office on her About Us page. Are you guys fans of dogs on the About Us page?
I mean, I think it's cute.
I love it.
Yeah, I think more of company values related. Dogs are considered part of your family. Your pets are part of your family. So if you want to spend the day with them in the office, go for it.
That's right. I mean, with coronavirus and everything, next thing you know, dogs may be doing the check-ins and delivering the doggy bag.
Plus, it sounds like Dana's really got her handle on how to deal with the community. So if she's got dogs in her office, it must be working for her.
Yeah, totally. We are very, very proud of this interview because we think Dana is a wonderful leader.
Matt, I've just got one question for you. Are you excited for season 5 of Unlocked?
I'm so excited for season 5 of Unlocked. The most unusual season that we have ever done, both with the individuals that we have handpicked and the circumstances that this crazy world has presented us with. I think that the insight of this season is taking vacation rental podcasting to new heights. You guys with me? Don't you know you're not alone? Won't you come into my life, into my life? Dana Lubner is the director of sales, aka the wearer of many hats at Effortless Rental Group in Denver, Colorado. She is way more than a property manager. She's also behind Denver's Good Neighbor Summit and has found herself in like a surprise advocacy role that I don't think she originally signed up for, but she almost seems destined to do. Today, we're going to talk about the role of individual property managers in a post-pandemic world. We're going to talk about why this moment in time presents a huge threat to every single one of our listeners. And we're going to talk about some specific ways that we can save ourselves from all of that. And perhaps most importantly, we're going to talk about dogs. Dana Lubner, welcome to Unlocked.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt.
First and foremost, this is a post-COVID-19 podcast, so I'd like to know what your daily routine is like in your current stay-at-home or quarantine mode.
Oh my goodness. I mean, this has been one of the silver linings of all of this. I wake up an hour later than I used to, so I get to wake up at 6:15. I'm getting more sleep, like I always have dreamt of being able to fit into my life. And then I'm starting my day with a quick jog with my dog, Hendrix, and then usually followed up with some kind of yoga practice or workout. And that gets me firing on all cylinders, ready to sit down in my new office space, also known as the kitchen countertop, and, try to be really strategic on how I kind of recalibrate what I focus on my day-to-day job requirements.
And I like how you've just gotten straight to the good stuff, dogs. Pandemics provide all kinds of terrible new lines of thinking for us, but I feel like dogs are the bright light in all of this. In fact, I think maybe dogs were behind this whole crisis. On your About Us page of Effortless, you actually have dogs listed as members of your team. You got Cooper and Lola, you got Hendrix that I just mentioned, and you got Jake, who I almost thought was an eagle by the perspective of that photo. What was the thought behind putting these dogs on your About Us page?
Well, I think, in this modern day world, a lot of people are choosing to have kids or not to have kids. And more I'm seeing my own community of friends choosing four-legged kids versus the two-legged ones. And so we saw this as an opportunity to humanize our company and be realistic about the fact that we have sometimes up to 9 dogs in our office space, as everyone is allowed to bring in their pet as long as they're friendly. So, they're very much part of the Effortless community.
Do you ever hear from guests any comments about the dogs?
I mean, I wouldn't say from our guests, but it's more about the property owners, our clients
Hmm.
that say, "Hey, I looked at your website and, I enjoyed the photo of the team. I felt like I got to know who I was going to be
Hmm.
potentially working with." But it really, I think, breaks the ice and gives people that warm and fuzzy feeling when they see some cute pets also part of the group.
Totally. And it's perfectly in line with this theme of craftsmanship, of practicing our craft, of being individual creators and being upfront that we have dogs and we love dogs. Has Jake ever gotten that comment that he looks like an eagle before? Or is it just me?
I love that. I think that it's especially with that photo of him in particular, but he has a very unique look to him. So I think he would take that as a compliment.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's kind of a blend between terrified and curious. So if you have a chance, listeners, go over to that Effortless About Us page, see those dogs, and encourage you to add your own pets to your About Us page to endear your guests. Dana, I have known you for a little while now, but I actually have never had the chance to sit down. The crisis is a perfect opportunity. And I'd like to know a little bit about where you are from originally and how you fell into this crazy vacation rental gig.
Yeah, it's a fun story, and like many people in our space, I think it's very much just as you said. We've all kind of fallen into this space. I'm originally from the seacoast of New Hampshire. I grew up on a crop farm with two sisters and a little brother, and you know, eventually found myself living in Denver, Colorado, just about going on 11 years now. I was working in marketing and advertising, and I just found myself rather unhappy or unfulfilled. I'll always take the skills that I learned in that role with me throughout my life. But I remember the day I sent my family the dreaded 8-person group text, and I said, "I'm unhappy in my job." And my brother, who usually never responds because he's the
Is that
baby of
Taylor?
Taylor, yes,
Yeah, I remember meeting him at that party at VRMA, New Orleans.
exactly. Yes. So he chimes in and says, "Come work for me. I've been dying to have you on my team." So, joined Effortless Rental Group at the start of 2018, and have been working alongside my brother ever since. And I couldn't feel more happy and fulfilled in this position and being a part of this community.
I want to talk a little bit about your finding your place in a moment. But just so people have an idea, Effortless Rental Group manages how many properties in Denver?
So our biggest footprint is Denver, but we have properties all throughout the mountains. So Breckenridge, Vale, Winter Park, but our property count is right around 75 properties.
Amazing. And your team, in addition to the or three dogs and an eagle, looks relatively young. Is that on point?
Yes,
They're all
absolutely.
like around 30, 40
Yep.
years old. And this is a kind of a new generation. Did most of these people accidentally find their way to this niche as well? Were they doing completely other things beforehand?
I would say most of the people were doing completely other things beforehand, without a doubt.
Okay. And Effortless also offers a number of services to property owners. Um, and it's now been going at this for quite some time. And again, in a moment, I'd also like to talk about why Denver is such a weird vacation rental landscape. But just out of curiosity, and before we move into those two topics, now that you know everything that you know about vacation rentals, if you had to start your property management group from scratch again now, is there any big things you do up front for those who are maybe thinking about entering the space in the coming months?
I mean, I would say coming on board with Effortless, I was in charge of new client acquisition. And so I was very much mindful of that client relationship. And I would say it would be really valuable to wrap your mind around that guest experience as well. I mean, I'm kind of siloed in the sense of working directly with the property owners, but making sure that you are very hospitable minded and that you
Mhm.
are able to really be able to go above the frustrations of life and knowing that you're there to service a guest and create a great experience. I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily different, but I'd say that's an essential quality and characteristic for someone that wants to get into the vacation rental property management business.
Yeah, huge. I've noticed, especially with this new generation that's coming in, and I would um, say this is true about the general age of people like us. We tend to look for quick things. We tend to look for quick fixes, quick wins. Airbnb certainly provided a springboard to quick mini victories for a lot of folks. But I'm so with you that that first sort of caution that this is truly a hospitality business, and if you don't understand what that means, you're kind of in trouble. This kind of leads us into the pandemic, and I don't want to spend too much time talking about it. But my guess is that it has hit you guys, and that you've had to make some difficult moves. Is there anything especially difficult that you've had to decide on in the last few months?
I'd say much like many people have noted this, the whole COVID thing was very much like the stages of grief for us, a lot
Hmm.
of denial up front, and we sat with that feeling for a little while. I think the biggest challenge was having to do layoffs, working alongside my brother and, many of the people that are on staff with us, they are friends prior to working together. So we very much have this effortless family vibe. And so building a culture at the company has been a big focus of mine. And so, even though we have hopes of this all being temporary and everyone coming back together, um, I'm a sensitive person, and so it was really challenging having those conversations about needing to make layoffs and you know thinning out the team for a time being.
Was there anything that you that seemed to be a nice reminder in all that? In my case, when I've had to make layoffs, it's just a kind of transparency and openness and communication that is kind of the only thing you can do to soften any blow. Is there anything else that you've kind of learned through that process?
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think it's about continuing to stay in touch with the employees, making sure that they're doing okay. We've built such a team that cares deeply about the success in their role as well as the success of the company. So they've just been super responsive, really engaged, excited to come back, sharing articles still about our industry and all of the headlines that keep coming across our screens.
Hmm. Had a conversation with my father last night, who owns a generational shop in Princeton, New Jersey. They sell specialty wool products, blankets and jackets and things like that. Um, and he had to have some of those difficult conversations with his employees. And it was the same thing. It's like staying in touch, being open, that we just can't afford it. It's just not possible right now. That seemed to earn him a good dose of goodwill, and also the trust and respect that he had been building up over the years. That was helpful too. He, unlike vacation rentals, he's in retail. He has a shop in which people try stuff on, which is just a weird new landscape to think about. For you, have there been any pivots or new opportunities that you've begun thinking about in this post pandemic travel world?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the real silver lining here is that while our daily routines have come to, a stop or a turn or a pivot, um, I personally have had the opportunity to do more personal work on my mindset, my relationships, looking at my finances, all the things that I wish I had time for.
Hmm.
I think all of us are going through a pandemic, but I think a lot of this reminds me of like an identity crisis. It's a
Totally.
chance for us to hit that pause button and say, okay, this is a new path, new terrain that I am traveling. And what do I want that to look like? And what are we doing that we want to do more of? And what are the things that we really could do without? And obviously, when you're in a position where you have to assess the finances of the company, you look at all those services or those subscriptions that you're just being billed for on a monthly basis. And you say, do we really need this? And if we don't, let's get rid of it. So, being able to step away and hit the pause button and do more yoga, do more meditating has allowed me to kind of tap into my creative side so I can kind of fire on all cylinders and not be on autopilot. So, community is so much about our industry, and looking at ways we can support the rebirth of our community when the time's right is without a doubt on all of our minds.
Yes. And that's yes with a YASSS for you millennials out there. This is a perfect chance to introduce you to Point Central, the home automation experts of our industry. Let Point Central help you reduce hassle and improve your income through smart home automation. Eliminate keys with connected door locks, allowing guests to go directly to their rental, removing late night trips due to lost keys, and get notifications when cleaning crews or maintenance teams complete their work. This actually seems especially relevant to me today in the post-COVID world where people, all people really, travelers especially, are going to be kind of on edge. And the fewer touch points, the fewer germs that are going in and out of that property, the better. Control utility bills with Point Central by scheduling set points so that renters cannot drastically raise or lower the temperature when the property's occupied. So the temperature basically stays consistent when it's vacant. Stu and Tammy, you guys put the temperature on like Arctic blast. Is that a Panama thing?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they do have it on Arctic blast a lot of places in Panama, although where we live, we don't have air conditioning. But a lot of times when we're in vacation rentals and I don't know, it's just nice to sleep with the covers on and have it cool. Yeah. Plus, you're apparently, a reptile and you love just warm weather all the time. So.
That is Mr. Reptile.
I think maybe we're just like sweaty people.
You are sweaty people. That's a fact.
But no, really, seriously, there's a lot of systems in our house. We live off the grid. And the more automation we can bring to it, the better in terms of when generators turn on, when solar panels turn on, when batteries charge, when they don't charge. I'd love to be able to lock the doors. I'd love to have some home automated camera systems that are sending me alerts when there's motion sensors going on. And eventually I want automated climate control. So I'm going to be one of the first people to sign up for Point Central just as soon as I get some of the other things like electricity working.
Hot damn. Talk about an endorsement. Point Central can also help prevent costly maintenance projects through real-time alerts such as water leak detectors, humidity limits, and the new HVAC analytics program. Tells you early on when your HVAC unit starts to misbehave. I've become like an expert on HVAC analytics since I started working with Point Central, and it is indeed a very helpful thing. Finally, Point Central helps you give owners an extra peace of mind with monitored life safety services such as smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, and intrusion monitoring. Visit pointcentral.com/VRMB to learn more. That's pointcentral.com/VRMB. That was in my best automated voice. Let's get back to the show. Is there any technology that you have either used that you want to especially double down on, or new technology that you want to introduce moving forward? Or is it the same tech stack that you've kind of always stuck with? Is there any main pieces of that?
I would say I don't know that there's new technology that we're diving into right now, but it's becoming better familiarized with the technology that we already have set up. So, it's really easy to understand basic functionality, but what the slowdown gives us the chance to do is everything that's on our wish list of when I have time, I'll do X, Y, and Z. And this is that time where we can, better utilize the software that we're paying for. So I think it's just a chance to become more professional and use things to the best ability that they've been created for.
Yeah, I'm so with you. And it does require a certain kind of accountability. It's like looking inward and say, okay, I've known I needed to do this for quite some time. I've known I needed a property management software. I've known I needed to implement some kind of cleaning app. Now, if I don't do it now, I'm pretty much avoiding the thing for eternity. There are certainly going to be property owners and managers who this pause actually stops them dead in their tracks and more or less ends the business. In some cases, that may be someone who just didn't want to do it anymore. In other cases, it might be somebody who just sees the mountain as too steep to climb. And those properties end up going back to a long-term rental market. Do you see the competition after all of this being sort of flushed or cleansed out in any way?
Without a doubt. I mean, the hosts that are faint at heart or don't have the ability to see 6 months, 12 months, 18 months down the road, those are the individuals that are transitioning into long-term rentals or selling their homes. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's probably a good thing in a way. We talk a lot, you and I, about the inconsistency of our industry through the eyes of a traveler. I myself, if I'm going somewhere where I don't know a professional vacation rental host, it's kind of a gamble as to whether it's going to be a good experience, a professional experience or not. And that is something that no matter how professional Dana is, it still impacts the traveler because they don't know Dana. They don't have that clarity in choosing. So I really like to think that this is a new era. And are you finding, and I want to get into your advocacy work in just a moment, that your colleagues there in Denver are coming out stronger?
Absolutely. I'd say, because of the advocacy group that I'm a part of, we've built relationships with what you would say are competitors. And so I already look at my competitors as though they are part of the property management family. And so, I have people that will reach out to me and say, hey, how are you handling this? Or what would you do with that? And I think it's the energy and the essence of our industry that everyone is looking to help each other out and lend a bit of advice or, research something together. That's one of the things that amidst this time, I have just been very touched at our community and its ability to want to get through this together as a collective. And so I'd say absolutely we are buying, bringing ourselves together more than ever so that we can get through this. And for those that can't, then it's a chance for us to, help them out as they transition out of the space.
And explain to other listeners what the regulatory landscape is in Denver, very briefly, just so they understand what we're working with here.
Yes, so you're required to have a short-term rental license. And in order to get a short-term rental license, the property needs to be your primary residence.
Which means that you live there?
It means that you cannot live anywhere else as a primary residence. And, part of the challenge with this is how does, one define the amount of time that you need to live there? Right now it's not defined. So it's the place in which you usually return.
That is to say that there are a fixed amount of short-term rental permits in Denver, and they're kind of a coveted thing. People seek them.
So that would be a direction we are hoping to go and to create as a new avenue for properties. But right now, there's not a fixed amount of primary residence licenses that the city will hand out.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a unique property profile because the city does not want to see full-time short-term rentals, and so
Mm-hmm.
the lifespan of that property may be shorter than a destination where we have properties in Breckenridge where that's a second home or a third home and it's a full-time short-term rental or a full-time vacation rental.
And I want to get I want to get you to share your new permitting idea before we get off here. But more importantly, what got you into this whole advocacy world? because you're an unusual person in the sense that you have kind of taken it upon yourself to not only do the things that an independent property owner or manager should do, but also the community efforts of uniting other owners and managers. You had a big role in the Good Neighbor Summit. First of all, what got you inspired to start all of this work?
I mean, I think I was born into a family of advocates for one cause or another. It's just very much in my bloodline for us to be, fighting a good fight for whatever the topic may be. But, I'd say about a year ago, we started an advocacy group. It's a collection of passionate hosts, real estate professionals, property managers, and we realized that things were starting to turn sideways. The headlines of the newspapers were painting an inaccurate picture of who hosts in Denver were. So we realized if we didn't show up, so to speak, we were going to find that all of our abilities to have short-term rental properties would be taken away.
That's a problem for all of us. And it's also something that I think oftentimes a lot of people don't work on it until it's too late, especially now when we're starting to see short-term rentals deemed non-essential businesses by governors in this time of recovery from the pandemic. That gives hotel lobbies an opportunity to step in and really just shut the door on any glimmer of hope that we had in terms of proper regulation in our area. You kind of your work manifested itself in what I think is just a fantastic singular example of what any local community of short-term rental professionals can do in the form of this Good Neighbor Summit. Explain to the listeners briefly what it was to start off with and maybe what the goal was.
Absolutely. So as I was saying before, headlines, the narrative, everything was starting to paint this sensationalist of hosts that were not being professional and, magnifying the bad actors and not showing the good side of our community. And so we realized we needed to phase out our approach. And first phase was how do we change the narrative? And so we realized that we could bring together a collective of individuals that are involved, whether it's like I said, realtors or a host or city representatives and officials to an event. And it was back in November. We invited industry thought leaders like, Dave Kraus, Scott Shafford, Ashley Hougini, as well as a former city council representative. And
you invited me too, but I was embarrassed that I wasn't able to come.
It's all right. We'll get you next time.
You held me on that one. I will be there.
Awesome. Yeah. So it was about 200 people that came together for an all-day event where we talked about literally what it means to be a good neighbor. So everything from resolving conflict, difficult conversations, letting your neighbors know that you're hosting, what you can do from everything from upgrading your trash bin size to accommodate, having short-term rental visits at your property to, again, letting your neighbors know, hey, I'm going to be short-term renting my property while I'm gone. And being able to have industry thought leaders that talk about the future of our industry in our city. I think it was a beautiful representation of how much hosts care. And we did a lot of breakout think sessions at the tables they were sitting at where they could share best practices and so forth.
And just on a logistic standpoint, did it what did it take? It required some room somewhere, probably some food and drink, and really other than that, not some time.
Yeah, so lots of time, of course, but we had a beautiful gallery space that we were able to use. And then, of course, we got a keg of beer donated. I think that helps bring people to the event as well as pizza. And then we had, snacks at each of the tables and bottles of water so that people would stay alert and engaged. And then I think, having Visit Denver as one of the speakers, talking about what they see and trends that were collected from the 500 guest surveys that we did. We were really able to understand who it is that comes to our city, where they're spending most of their dollars, and why they would choose to stay at a short-term rental over a hotel.
And I love that you mentioned pizza, because in my experience working in Panama with former gang members, there is nothing that brings people to a meeting consistently like what we called el poder de pizza, the power of pizza. What were some tangible outcomes from that event that put you in a better position as a group and individuals moving forward?
I'd say the biggest outcome of this was, we put up together an executive summary of the event and what was discovered and the materials that we were able to gather information about our local community. And we sent that out to all of our city council members, their aides, the mayor, as well as the excise and license department that oversees short-term rental licenses. The event itself made the news on a couple different stations. And so we accomplished the goal of getting positive stories about our community into the news as a headline shift. And, what we saw is that the hosting community was able to feel that much more neighborly towards each other. They knew they had a safe space that they could brainstorm ideas. And then, we have a Facebook group where I think people have now created friendships from being able to meet in person, help each other with questions that they post to the group. But I'd say, we have these every other month meetings called the Short-Term Rental Advisory Committee. And it's a committee I just was granted a seat on last month. And it was such a narrative shift. It almost gives me goosebumps thinking about it. In that meeting following the Good Neighbors Summit, they talk about the news of short-term rentals. And oftentimes they're talking about what they're doing in Miami or what they're doing in New Orleans. And so for us to be able to create our own news and for the individuals that represent or present this material, they were there. We had invited them to the event, and the way that they spoke about the event was that they were so impressed. They were floored to see such professionalism in the way it was put together. And I think it just created a bridge so that there was much less of this us versus them dialogue that has just been going on over the last few years, and that they saw us with a lot more, or looked at us with a lot more respect since that event.
In today's uncertain world, vacation rental managers are looking for ways to protect their revenue, their guests, and the rental units they manage. Rental Guardian delivers best-in-class travel protection, damage protection, and liability protection for over 600 property managers around the world. Now, times have changed a little bit, and Stewie, my guess is that you as a traveler, you're looking for more flexible cancellation policies when you book.
Absolutely. I don't think any travel over the next year or longer is going to happen without the ability to cancel plans at any time, given everything that's going on. So knowing that Rental Guardian is offering a way for hosts to be able to deliver that flexibility without getting hurt financially, I think that's a huge, huge component.
And it's actually a new innovation. I call it a technology of sorts that Brady and John at Rental Guardian had kind of been mulling over for years, in hearing from managers at these conferences, people saying, when are you going to offer cancel for any reason insurance? We want to protect ourselves. And only recently has Rental Guardian launched Master Cancel, which enables property managers the ability to offer flexible terms, like Stuart was just talking about, to their guests, while also protecting the hard-earned revenue of the property manager and the owners that we all represent. This is an important new innovation that has never really been done before. And using the terms and conditions of the property manager was the way that John and Brady found their way into this Master Cancel program. I think it's going to be a game changer for the industry. You can visit rentalguardian.com to learn more. That's rentalguardian.com to learn more. Let's get back to the show. Yeah, babe, you read my mind and know what I like. And the us versus them thing is such an important topic. It requires a bunch of messaging and narrative, as you say, and psychology in a lot of cases. What about the us versus them internally? How do you deal with an individual owner or manager who views another owner or manager as terrible competition that we must avoid at all costs. You ever run into that?
You know, I would have to say I don't when I think of like the small local comparable property managers to Effortless
Mm-hmm.
Rental Group. I
Mm-hmm.
really don't have that mindset. It might just be me, but I think the fact that we created this advocacy group and all get together on a weekly basis, or now it's a Zoom weekly basis,
Mm-hmm.
it really just took down all of that competitiveness. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the nature of our industry. It's all what you do and all of the other podcast hosts. It's about knowledge sharing and information sharing and resource sharing. So I would say you're not going to last if that's the spirit that you
Mm-hmm.
have in this space. If you're not having a mentality of how can we do this collectively together, because we have quite the challenge on a lot of our plates with the regulatory landscape for many communities, and we need to collectively brainstorm how we can shift the dialogue.
And have there been any other sort of side effects or results of this kind of community building? Have you found that certain owners and managers are able to, say, purchase products together at cheaper prices, or perhaps able to do things that a larger group wouldn't necessarily be able to do, in addition to just that narrative?
I love the idea of purchasing products together, so I'll make sure to write that one down. But I think it just has helped our voice be unified.
Mm-hmm.
Is the biggest takeaway I can see, and to have
Okay.
people be alert to the reality of needing to have skin in the game right now.
This is a perfect opportunity to introduce you to one of our sponsors, Breezeway. Breezeway's property care and operations platform solves the challenge of ensuring clean, safe, and high-quality properties in the wake of COVID-19, combining deep learning technology with mobile-first task management. Breezeway automates your operations, and it gives you confidence that every property is ready for the next stay. Breezeway is helping over 400 vacation rental managers these days transform the way they care for property and best respond to COVID-19. This is a new world, my friends. We need to care for our properties and communicate with our teams in ways that we haven't before in order to assure the safety and the satisfaction of our guests. And Breezeway is just one of those tools that is recommended on a regular basis, completely organically outside of their sponsorship. In fact, when I approached them about this sponsorship, I said it was such a natural fit because they were already being recommended on a regular basis. In fact, they may even have been recommended in this podcast today. Visit breezeway.io to learn more. That's not breezeway.com, breezeway.io to learn more. Now let's get back to the show. Right now, our industry is, the world is turned upside down in a lot of ways. And there's a lot of confusion, a lot of uncertainty. One of the efforts that you were involved in recently, and I saw this because it was in the news, was offering homes, I'm guessing on behalf of your colleagues and yourselves, to first responders who needed them. Walk us through that process.
Absolutely. So when your business comes to a screeching halt of sorts, you have to think about what you can do to still make an impact and provide generosity, especially at times where we're all told to stay at home. You just kind of feel a bit helpless, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak. So, our company had immediately started calling hospitals, and every city has gone through their own phases and timelines of when this pandemic has hit them hardest and when they've seen their highest numbers. And so the need really wasn't there yet for traveling professionals. And so the timing was kind of serendipitous, where one of our respected colleagues in the space, Premier Vacation Rentals, had reached out to us and said, "Hey, we've created this toolkit of sorts, and we wanted to see if you'd like to join us in this mission of providing nearly free lodging for those impacted by COVID." So
Hmm.
eagerly jumped on board, sent out an e-blast to our clients, had a pretty good opt-in rate, answered a bunch of questions and concerns that they had. And it's been really beautiful to know that we can provide, obviously people that are on the first line and medical professionals, but anything all the way down to somebody that doesn't want to expose their elderly parents that they currently have living with them, and maybe they've been laid off from their job and they need a place to stay. We see a lot of people that are coming into Denver that are part of construction teams, as that's not been deemed as non-essential. So it's all kinds of people that are able to utilize this program. And I think it creates even more community when our hosts, our clients, the property owners, have an ability to opt in and offer their space up where it might otherwise sit empty.
And how was that received by the community and politicians? Was it received well?
I haven't personally gone and sent the letters to politicians. I think the good news is that short-term rentals are allowed to operate in Denver. I think part of the reason is because of the fact that they've seen the value that it brings people that are in need, as far as an accommodation that has, keyless private access and a lot safer than a traditional hotel. So I think it's making an impact on the way that our governor is allowing short-term rentals to operate in some cities and our mayors. And I think, even just based off of this call, it makes me want to go ahead and send those articles over to our city council so they see the good that property managers are able to do for those in need.
Yeah, it seems to me like we talk about relationships a lot, and relationships require time and they require giving if you're going to be taking. And it seems like one of those gestures that you do, not because necessarily it's going to be taken up and utilized and the house is going to be full, but really just a demonstration of participation, that we want to be part of the solution. And to me, it sounds like that's a layer that sits beneath a lot of the work that you do. Walk us through also this new harebrained idea that you have that I think is brilliant, about coming at this advocacy and regulatory challenge in Denver from a new angle in a post-COVID world. Can we talk about that, or is that still top secret?
Yeah, I'd be happy to talk about it, and completely, and want to be able to share this just like our community always does with other cities that have a primary residence requirement. So what we've seen is that even amidst these COVID times, there are still people that are being losing their short-term rental licenses, or their lifestyle is deemed not a true primary residence occupancy within that property. And so we see our inventory dropping, which is the opposite direction that I think is going to be needed in the future. So our city of Denver is estimated to lose about $180 million in tax revenue this year alone. And who knows how that will look next year and the future. So what we are trying to do is position short-term rentals as an avenue to bring new money back into the city, being able to provide accommodations that we see will be even more in demand than before. So our idea is that we would like to present a second license type that is limited in quantity and limited in location. And so this would allow for a non-owner occupied, non-primary residence individual to offer their property as a short-term rental. And so we're very much in the building stage of this license, but our goal is to be able to create an additional tax that would go towards areas of need, so affordability in housing as well as homelessness, where we can say, by allowing for this second type of license, we can create funds for areas that we know are near and dear to many citizens within our community, as well as the representatives. And I think that a great idea that some smart guy gave me is to pitch this as a pilot program, and so that it's not saying, hey, we want this moving forward forever, but we want to be able to present this for a certain amount of time. And, it allows those that say yes to this to be able to save face and see the value of how it can help revitalize the neighborhoods, the individuals that live in our city, and the businesses that are desperately hurting badly right now.
And assuming, I love this idea because it's completely thinking outside of the box. Um, Someone once gave me a book that's called The Third Door, which argues that to get into a club, there is the main door, people wait in line. There's the back door by the kitchen where you can kind of sneak in if you know like somebody who works there. But there's always a third door somewhere along the side of the building that is not really used at all, but is a way to get into the club. And what I love about your idea is that it innovates on the permitting process. You're not even talking apples to oranges. You've brought in an entirely new fruit to the equation. What fruit would you like it to be, just for
A banana.
kicks? Okay, you've brought the banana into the equation that has all these different virtues, that also is finite in its experimental nature. You have the credibility. You've built up this wonderful reputation and authority in the area on behalf of your group. And it makes it very hard for a legislator to say, no, we don't want to try that as a way to get our economy moving again. Is your instinct that it's going to be received well? You optimistic on the banana?
I am optimistic on the banana. Yes,
Good. I am
absolutely.
too. And I just encourage listeners to begin thinking in that kind of new dimension. We've had to deal with a lot of challenges. We've had to use the same kinds of words. We've had to showcase the same kinds of people over and over again for the past several years, and in some cases longer. Now is an opportunity to begin introducing entirely new ideas, entirely new terms that will successfully catch people off guard in a way that maybe changes their line of thought, changes their mindset. Dana, as we kind of near the end of this conversation, what is your sort of wish for the future of our industry? You do so much work for your own company. You do a lot of work for your local Denver community, but do you have a specific wish for the vacation rental movement at large moving forward?
My wish would be that we continue being community focused. We invite people into our homes, so to speak. And I think that is symbolic for the way that this community has been in existence. I haven't been in the community nearly as long as some individuals that I look up to with great respect. But in my, just over 2 years, I've felt like it's been family. So, going to the VRMB conference in New Orleans, it was like kind of like a coming home, so to speak, even though I had never met many of these people in person. So my wish is that we continue to be a creative collective that is always humble and willing to evolve and pivot when the time comes, as well as just being very conscious of our impact that we're making as we push for new changes and as we try to navigate this new world that we will soon be doing.
And do you have any thought on the role of participation of individual owners and managers stepping to the challenge? Is there any way to move forward as a group without that?
I mean, the obvious answer is no. Everyone has to be involved and do their part. And if you just hope that the guy on your left or the gal on your right will do it for you, that's when we get into some dangerous waters. So it takes everybody.
Amen to that. I have really enjoyed this conversation, and it's really got my mind thinking on how other destinations can use the success of Denver. And I say success because it's way more than just on the surface. The stuff that you guys are doing is holistic, and it's slow, but it's working. And with that, I kind of want to tailor off this interview. There's also what appears to be my neighbor. I'm looking at him through the window holding what looks to be a sword. So I guess now would be a good time to kind of tail this down. Dana Lubner, thank you for your time and, more importantly, your community leadership. It's wonderful to see.
Thank you so much for having me.
I hope you enjoyed this discussion as much as I did having it. The episode was produced by Tammy Rowe and Stuart Hooper of Mango Fish Studios. Our intro song is The Moon of Pajang by Instant Party. And if you feel inspired, please consider sharing to social media with your big takeaway. We love takeaways. They make us feel great. Lastly, if you want to receive updates, you can do so at vrmb.com/MMM. And if you want to join our virtual community of vacation rental professionals, become a member of VRMB's Inner Circle today. Until next time.